Welcome guys to another episode of Quakecraft. We are back showcasing an update on the greatest Quakecraft texture pack of all time. Many of you guys probably know that I use this pack all the time in almost all of my videos. It is actually the Quake Plus overlay, which gives a custom hoe texture to every single gun in the game because I think there's 20 of them. And so having custom textures for each of them is honestly super cool. A lot of people always ask, like, is there an actual texture pack for Quake? A lot of people always say it feels like there should be one, but there isn't one, so you're just stuck looking at regular wooden hoes. But this changes that, okay? And I've made a video about this on the past, but this is version 1.2 and they updated about 6 or so railguns, so we're gonna go over them today. And the one you're looking at right now is actually just the basic railgun. As you can tell, it's very standard looking because it's literally just meant to be a basic railgun. It's the default one, and this didn't have a texture before. It was just default, so now it has a texture. Not too much to say about it. It's wooden. It looks pretty good for a basic railgun. Also, the people in this game, 3 of them have like over 100k and 1 of them has over 50k. So if I win this game, I'm just proving that this game isn't completely pay to win, okay? There is actually skill involved. So whenever nons lose and they blame the fact that the game's pay to win, just show them this video, okay? Next up, we've got the Superior Railgun. This one also looks pretty standard, about what you'd expect for a railgun called the Superior Railgun. It kind of just looks like a reinforced or improved version of the basic railgun, where it's just all iron and it has like a bigger handle on it down at the bottom in the red there. I'll put up a picture of the older texture up on screen, but I really like this one as an improvement over the old one. The old design was one of my least favorites in the whole pack because it kind of just looked like a blaze rod with like a blade stuck to the end of it. So even though this one isn't anything super flashy, it is still a massive upgrade in my opinion. That being said, you may never see me use this gun ever again because it is a 1.4 second trigger, which is slower than the default gun. I always find it so funny how there's all these railguns that there's just basically zero reason to use whatsoever because they are worse than the default one. But hey, what do I know? I'm not a Hypixel admin. Next, we got the Butter Slapper, which is actually even worse than the Superior Railgun because it's 1.5 second trigger. But unlike the Superior Railgun, there is an actual reason to use it. For one thing, it gives you a custom kill message. If you look in chat, you can see that I'm slapping people instead of just gibbing them, which is the default kill message. And it also has a completely custom beam. It shoots out gold ingots. They look kind of weird in this pack, but almost every gun in the game gets their own custom kill message except for like just a few of them, and the Superior Railgun is one of the ones that just doesn't get its own kill message for some reason, which is kind of unfortunate. I feel like they should change that so that there's a purpose for the gun existing. And then there's also only a few guns in the game that have a custom beam like this, so I feel like it would also be kind of cool if every gun got that same treatment, and I think that that would make there be a lot more purpose for the guns existing. Anyways, this was a nice texture update. It's not a complete rehaul or anything like some of the other textures. It's more just like a reshade, but I think it looks extremely nice. I'll put up a picture of the old one on screen, but it was kind of just all the same yellow. Like it basically just had an outline and then it almost looked like one single straight yellow color all the way throughout the railgun. There is little to no shading on it whatsoever. So this is definitely a subtle change, but a welcome one for sure because I wasn't a huge fan of the old texture, but this one looks far superior in my opinion. I also love the name of this railgun because it just shows how old of a game Quakecraft really is. Nothing screams 2013 quite like calling gold butter. Alright, next up we got the Bling Bling Thing. This one's a 1 second trigger railgun, and this was a complete texture overhaul. This looks nothing like the old texture. Once again, I'll put up a picture of the old one on screen, but it was kind of just like a diamond encrusted iron rod with a gold blade on it. So this one looks completely different. I love this one a lot. It is such a sleek texture. If there's one single thing I would fault it on, it's that the old texture definitely looked a lot more bling blingy, if that makes sense. But that being said, this is just a way better looking texture, like in every single way. I absolutely love the animations. Any gun that has animations on, I'm immediately in love with. And there is absolutely still a bling element to it. It's got like that little gold ball encrusted into it, and it just looks fantastic. And of course, this is another railgun with a custom beam. It actually shoots out diamonds. So yeah, this was definitely one of my favorite updates in the whole pack, but my favorite is still yet to come, so stick around. Next up, we've got the Railgun of Darkness. This is a 0.9 trigger gun, and this is just a basic texture update rather than a complete overhaul like the last texture was. And it actually improved upon some of the complaints that I had in the original video I made where I showcased all these textures for the first time. So it's basically just a bit lighter now. It's more like gray rather than dark black, and I think some of the shading on the rod is different, and the animation's been slightly changed. I'm not really an artist in any way, so it's hard for me to exactly pinpoint what would make it better, but I feel like if there's a bit more contrast between the colors or the purple was a bit more lush, maybe something to make the animation a bit more noticeable, because it's kind of hard to tell, especially with the enchantment glint over it. You might not even really be able to tell that there is actually an animation at the bottom of the blade. But overall, it is definitely a welcome change. Like I said, the old texture was just a bit too dark for my liking, and this has definitely been an improvement on that. Next up, we've got the Love Gun, one of the most beloved guns in all of Quakecraft, of course, and this has just had a very minor texture change. And can I land that? Yes, I can. Through the wall. Let's go. But yeah, this one basically just had a very slight animation added. You might not even be able to tell over YouTube's compression. It's very very faintly pulsing, like the entire blade with the heart and everything. It's just pulsing ever so slightly, getting darker than lighter. This is definitely the smallest texture update out of the entire pack. It's almost a little bit hard to notice, but it's actually a very nice touch. I really do think it looks great. The last two railguns that I'll be showing after this have been completely retextured, and they're two of my favorite textures. The custom kill message for the love gun is to fell in love with, if you take a look in chat, which I always thought was really funny. It makes me think of this one time that this YouTube rank was playing, who we later found out was ITMG, and they had a custom nickname set as Poop, and a bunch of us were just messing around with different kill messages so that we were getting different messages like Rackles fell in love with poop or Rackles consumed poop. Listen, back a few years ago, that was the pinnacle of comedy. Who am I kidding? It's still the pinnacle of comedy. Next up, this is my absolute favorite texture in the entire pack. And it's funny I should say that because the old version of this texture was also my favorite version of the pack. And this is just a complete upgrade in every single way. I love this texture so much. The molten iron flowing through it with like the veins, if you want to call it that, going down the rod. It's so good. It's enough to make a grown man cream, honestly. And I'll put up a picture of what the old texture looked like up on screen. Keep in mind that it did have an animation. This is just a PNG, so it won't have the animation. But yeah, like just comparing the two, even though the old texture is also really solid and I do still like it, this one's just so much better. And I'm super happy that this is one of the ones that got such a massive and amazing texture update because it is the gun that I use almost all the time. I almost never use the Reaper, and those are the only two guns in the game that use the .85 trigger, which is of course the best. So those are the two options that I usually would go with if I'm wanting to play the game just regularly. And for the final texture of today's video, this one is another complete overhaul that I think is a massive upgrade on all fronts. This is the Reaper texture. Once again, I think I mentioned earlier, I'm just such a sucker for the animations, and seeing the like pulsing glowing red throughout the whole thing is so cool, honestly. This is such an upgrade over the old texture. The old one was very plain, I found, and kind of shaped a little bit oddly. It didn't really have the proper shaping to it that I like, but this is absolutely a massive improvement on all fronts. I'm such a sucker for the animations. Even though, like I said, I do almost always use the platinum smelter, I do really enjoy this texture as well. Now, like I said, there's actually 20 different railguns in the game, so if you want to check out the rest of the textures, click on the video on screen now. It'll take you to my original review for this pack. Of course, download link will be at the top of the description. Massive shout outs to Yosho for making this pack for the community, and massive shout out to you for watching this video, and of course liking and subscribing, which I'm sure you've already done, right?